So tonight, Maryland PPA, we welcome our new print chairs, our new print committee, Lydia Miller and Ellen Zangla. They're going to be teaching us tonight all about the ins and outs of print competition. There's some new things that are coming up. They'll tell you how to, I guess, prepare images and get them ready. And as you may or may not know, we have our first print competition of the year on January 27th.
Everybody knows Lydia. I think everybody knows me, but I'm Ellen Zangla. And as Danny said earlier, Lydia and I are taking over as the new co-print chair people as of, I guess, January 1st. So the start of an exciting year. And I know we've said this many times before, but Christina and Julie did an absolutely phenomenal job running print competitions for so many years. Christina, I don't even know how many she did it for, but we have big shoes to fill, and hopefully we will do that admirably. So welcome everybody. Thanks so much for coming tonight. And Lydia, take it away.
Well, hello, thank you for that. And yes, I agree, big shoes, huge, huge. But tonight we're gonna start and we're going to talk about print competition, hopefully shed a light to those who are new, and for those who have been competing and veterans, maybe we can share one or two nuggets with you, or maybe you can share a nugget or two with us. So with that said, we're going to talk a little bit about, this is the class agenda. These are the different topics that we're going to cover today. Some will go more in depth, and others we're going to give you links to where you could go at your leisure and get more information and learn. We've tried our best to model after PPA, so a lot of the things that we will reference straight back to PPA and all the wonderful new stuff that they have to learn from as well. Why print competition? Ellen, go for it.
So, well, it was interesting that we started off talking about this before the presentation actually started. And I think those first two are really kind of tied to each other. Challenge yourself and improve your photographic skills. Not only does it make you a better competitor, but it really does improve the quality of your client work. Now, of course, it's always nice for your peers to know how awesome you are, right, Joe Campanelli? I mean that as a compliment. I didn't mean that as a ego thing. It does help your business. I use print competition a lot for my business, honestly, as a marketing tool. Not everybody kind of knows, what everything means, but they're like, oh my God, you're an award-winning photographer. And it's true, but it helps kind of lend another level of credibility to what you do. It helps you stand apart from other people, other photographers, of which there are tens of thousands. So you can earn degrees through MDPPA as well as through PPA. Critiques, which we talked about, sometimes they can be hard to hear, but it really is the best way to grow. And if you get them from judges or your peers who know what they're talking about, they really are given lovingly. No one is intending to kind of hurt your feelings. And again, that feedback not only helps your print competition images get better, but everything that you hear is going to make your client work better too. So I know, Danny, you said something earlier about, the way you position a hand. Well, if you hear that, about a woman that you were posing, and if the judge says, well, it was a great image, except I didn't really like the way her hand was positioned, and the next time you're doing a client work, well, the side of the hand is prettier no matter how you look at it. So it's going to kind of help. The critiques are going to help everything that you do, and then you can get some nice little prizes from MDPPA as well.
Ellen, since I don't have my notes up, can you just let me know when it's my turn, please?
So yeah, so this is you. Levels of competition. Yep.
All right. So why do Ellen talked about why we compete, and now where do we compete? So Maryland PPA is kind of, if you think about it, as the beginning of your competition journey. So we're at the state and local level. We allow you to enter 3 quarterly competitions and 1 annual competition. And so the idea here is you kind of get your feet wet. You start at the Maryland level, and then hear the critiques, listen to what the judges have to say. During the quarterlies, you'll have times to work on things, bring them back. If they didn't merit, try to change the image a little bit, tweak it based on what the judges said. Then we put it into our annual competition, which is judged by a 5-panel plus a juror chairman. And so it is a little bit more like what a PPA or a district or IPC competition would look and feel like, but still at a local state level. And then from there, you can order recorded critiques. You can talk to your peers, your mentors, see how we can improve. All of your merited images will then proceed, if you choose to, your merited images can go to districts and IPC, where hopefully by the time you get to IPC, you've really worked hard on it and corrected it, did what you needed to do, improved it, and that's where you start earning your PPA degrees and your Maryland PPA degrees, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. Okay.
So, and then what happens, as Lydia talked about, is there are districts. So our district is SEPA, Southeast Professional Photographers of America. And so, there's district judging, and then there's international print competition. And so basically if you look at kind of everything as stepping stones, if you look at the state as a stepping stone to districts and district as a stepping stone to IPC, but they can all operate independently, right? You don't have to enter districts to enter IPC. The good thing about doing that is once you enter district, if it merits at districts, and you submit it as is without making any changes within the same year, you don't break the seal, basically is what it's called. If you don't break the seal, it will merit and move merit at IPC and potentially go loan there too. And then there are no degrees awarded by the districts, although they do give awards. And this, I'm not super familiar with all of these, but they do give awards for like high scoring images within categories. IPC works the same way, but within IPC, you can also earn 3 different degrees that are related to print competition, your master of photography, your master artist degree, and they added a new one a year or 2 ago called a master of wedding photography. So.
Is that you or me?
Hang on, you.
Okay, so how are the images judged? So this is, again, we're going to speak at the Maryland level. We're going to try to focus as much as we can tonight on Maryland, but we have incorporated, moving forward, where to go from here. But we're going to try to focus as much as we can on Maryland tonight. So during the quarterlies, we have a panel of 3 judges. And for those of you who have attended in person, you guys know we have 3 judges sitting, and images are projected. You can kind of follow along with us. And so each image, once it comes up, it's judged based on its own merit. The judges will take a look and go through the processes that they have to go through to judge an image, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Assign it a score. Each judge will assign it a score, and then those 3 scores will be averaged, and then we will name or call the final score. Sometimes the judges don't always agree. 2 might be higher than the 3rd or lower than the 3rd. If something like that does happen, they may call a challenge. A challenge basically would be one judge that felt strongly about an image, and maybe that judge felt that that image should score higher or even lower. So they will call a challenge where they can discuss it among themselves and try to either talk up or down the image, which means raise the score because of these are the elements that we see that you might be missing. But then a judge might say, well, you kind of inflated the score a little bit because I don't see what you're seeing. Please tell me. So that's what a challenge is where they talk amongst themselves to try to justify their scores, basically. After a challenge is done, they revote, and then the final score is registered, and that's the score that we will go by. Okay, so there is a criteria that they have to follow when scoring, and these are sort of your scoring help.
So this is basically, right. And so obviously the higher the score, the better, right? And
Correct.
when you're sitting there listening, you're always waiting for them to start with at least a eh, because you hate when you hear the S sound come out like 70 something, right? So
Right.
you're always, you're always kind of waiting. And, obviously the N sound is even better and the 100. But this is just basically kind of what the scores mean, and they're associated with different categories. So 90 to 94 is superior, and you can kind of see,
Right.
kind of see everything here. So
Yep. And so if your score falls somewhere in those categories, then you kind of have an idea of where you are and where you need to be, and how to work on, like you can chat with the mentor and say, okay, how do I get it to an excellent or a superior or exceptional if you're close to that next category up, and go from there. So it's more or less kind of like a measurement tool to kind of measure where your image stands. And how to improve upon to get you up to the next category.
and sometimes the judge will say that if they'll love an image and they'll say if something were different, so if the mat were different or if this area was burned down, it could go much higher. So you'll hear that as well. And what's I think is really interesting, and this is just a little quick kind of toss out, is IPC kind of changes the way they judge for loans somewhat frequently, but right now kind of everything that merits at IPC is judged for loan, and they're not doing scoring. But there's some times where like an image would score an 82 and it would still loan, and then you would have like a higher scoring image that wouldn't loan. So it's it's interesting. It's always the panel, and it's always subjective. It's always what judges are looking at it kind of on any given day. But my feeling is generally that if it's strong enough, it should always do well. Sometimes it might do better and sometimes it might not do as well. But
And Ellen, you brought up a good point, and I want to go back to that. With IPC changing their scoring system last year to not assign a numerical number, we've decided to keep the numerical numbers because we feel like we are still more of a teaching, because we are the beginning of the teaching environment. We would still like to give you the ability to know where you fall on that scale if you wish. So a couple of years ago when that change happened, we decided to keep our scoring system. And actually it was recommended also by PPA for many states to keep their numeric scoring system, which I think it's important to know, if it did merit, where on that merit scale do you fall? Are you on the 80 side of it, or are you on the 100 side of it? And where do you make improvements? So, all
Lydia, I
right.
need to sneak in here for 1 second. I need you to
Sure.
do me a favor.
Sure.
Hover over my little profile picture and make me the host again, unless you want to let people in the waiting room, because I can't do
Oh,
it.
okay.
Hover over my screenshot picture there, and then the three little dots, you should be able to click it and say, make me a host.
Okay.
All
Is
right.
that, is that you?
We also have, yep, we have some questions for you.
Okay.
Can you order critiques after the judging?
yeah, you can. I saw some of them. I just didn't want to go and chat and get distracted. A lot of those questions that I kind of saw come through are going to be covered later.
Okay.
So is it easy enough to kind of like if they're
Yeah,
not
we can hold off.
Yeah, if they're not directly related to something that we just talked about, can they be held till the end because we might cover it? So the critique question is a yes. They can be ordered up to 3 days after for MBPPA. It can be ordered for up to 3 days after the competition is over.
Terrific. Thank you.
And is there another question pertaining to anything we've talked about
There
so far?
is, but I think you guys are going to get to the question, so I won't ask it just yet.
Okay. All right. Do you want me to wait for you to let them in, or are we good to go?
They are in. So
well,
continue.
welcome, whoever just joined us.
So this next one is you too.
All right. Do I need to come back to sharing? No, I'm still sharing.
Yeah, the next three are all yours.
I can't advance. Why? Danny, do you need to make me host again?
No, you should be fine. It says multiple, you can share, you can.
I'm not able to advance to the next screen.
That's you. That's got nothing to do with.
Okay. All right, thank you, Bruce. How judges arrive to score. So basically, they do not start at 100 and start subtracting, which is what many people think they do. That's not at all how they look at the image. They evaluate the 12 elements of competition of design. We're going to talk about in a little bit. And then they start evaluating the image based on that. They take in consideration, artistical abilities and technical abilities, artistic abilities and technical abilities. And, a good image will provide you with both. And once we discuss the 12 elements, you will also start to understand a little bit more where we're coming from with that one. Like I said earlier, PPA has great information about how they come to their scoring, how they come to assign these scores. So if you are interested, this is where you can go and learn more about it. We are going to share all of this information with you, so don't go crazy trying to write this down. We're going to share the slides with all of the links to go to where we direct you to go. But we figured it would be a whole lot nicer than sitting here playing little videos for you every 5 minutes, and you could do it at your leisure. A majority challenge. So sometimes you will hear us talking, normally during a competition, there's a couple of people, one with an iPad and one with the computer and another person working the screens and all that good stuff. So we all have jobs to do, and sometimes, you might hear, hey, we have a majority challenge, or you will hear a voice in the dark that says majority challenge. So what that means is there is one juror that's preventing that image from meriting. And so the jurors need to discuss this and to see, if they can figure out why that one juror is preventing the image from meriting, and they talk about it and they'll have a discussion, and we will rescore the image and we will get the final score.
And it can be a judge who is preventing an image from meriting, or a judge who essentially merits the image on his or her own score. So for example, if you have, I'm not going to be this good with the math, but if you have 3 judges and one of them scores it an 87 and 2 of them scored an 78, then it will merit, and the majority of the panel did not merit the image. So that would also be a majority challenge, when the majority of the panel scores differ from merit or non-merit.
Okay, so what makes a merit image? And I think that's you, Ellen.
Yeah, this is me. So 12 elements of a merit print. I'm not going to read all of these to you, and we are going to go over each one of them in detail in a little while. But when judges are looking at an image, they are looking at all of these elements, and they all work together, right? Your technique helps with the impact, your presentation helps with the, everything just kind of works together, and that's how they score images.
Again,
and so, yeah,
go ahead.
These are all going to be embedded in the presentation, which will be online. But PPA has a wealth of resources, and so if you would like to hear true experts are really speaking about this, it's awesome. I listened to Carl Keller did a bunch of the ones. I don't know if he did these. I was listening to the very specific ones for each element, and I think almost everybody knows Carl. He's awesome, but he does a great job explaining it, and these discussions are really strong as well. And then I think there's one more, Lydia, if you click to the next slide. Yep. There you go.
So, okay, so again, we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but the actual, I am so sorry, lost my train of thought with this phone ringing. This is the actual website that you go to for PPA, and then each individual one, I have it linked with the individual category. Okay, file, presentation, and submission. So is that you or me?
The first one is you, the next one is me.
Okay, so when we are ready to submit our files, there are, hang on, again, this is where you can find more information, but Okay. So when we are ready to submit our images, we are asking you to prepare them in a certain guideline so that they fit with MDPPA, printcompetition.com, as well as IPC and SEPA. So all of that information we're going to cover shortly. And again, you're going to find it on our MDPPA rules for 2021. And all of the entries and the registrations will occur through printcompetition.com. So once you prepare your images based on the specifications that we will provide you, you're going to get it ready, put it through printcompetition.com, pay your dues, and everything happens from there at that point.
And I know you can pull up the next slide, Lydia.
There we go.
Okay, so I saw one of the questions that kind of popped up in the chat was about physical prints. I believe I saw that come through. For the quarterly competitions, it's digital only. For the annual competition, we have done a mix of physical prints and digital. You do still have to submit a digital file with that physical print, though. This year, the entire convention and the print competition will be online. And so this year it will still be digital prints. And then I think what we'll do is we'll evaluate it for 2022. I think what we do every year is we just kind of look at the number of people that are entering physical prints. But for now, I think you can say that I think we had enough last year to warrant this year if we were doing it. But this year it will be straight digital. Kind of the really big thing on here is the change that instead of having being able to enter 10 images in any competition, you can now enter up to 15 with a maximum of 8 images in any one category. And the categories right there are below, and we define them shortly in a couple of slides. And this next slide, Lydia, is yours.
Thank you. So I talked about specification and dimensions. For digital images, it must be 4,000 pixels on the longest side and at 200 PPI. So once you set up your image, and there's also information coming on where you can get more specific and more detail about this, 4,000 pixels at 200 PPI. And I think PPA recommends it if you don't do the 200 PPI, they've recommended at 10 instead of 12. So, well, I think we have to update that one. I'm sorry, I did not, but I kind of just looked at that right before class. Physical print, I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say you're right. And what's nice about printcompetition.com is if the image is the wrong size, it will tell you. It will say, and the same thing, honestly, when you upload for SEPA or IPC, if it's sized incorrectly, you get this little kind of bounce back thing that says it's sized incorrectly.
And also the 4,000 pixel or the 24 inches that we're going to talk about next for the physical prints is really the overall presentation, which also includes your mat. So don't think that it's 4,000 plus whatever your mat size is going to be. It's total final presentation. So for the physical prints, it's between 80 and 40 and 480 square inches, with the long side being 24 inches. So it could be 24 inches by whatever you want, as long as if you don't go past the 480 square inches total. For physical prints, we do ask you to follow the requirements for dimensions, identifications, mounting, physical embellishment, or any foreign materials, and it's going to be in our guidelines, and we might have some more information about that. Please respect that, because a lot of times if you put foreign materials on there, or like push pins or something, it might damage your print or somebody else's print. So we ask you to please follow those specifications, and if we feel that it does not meet those specifications, those images will unfortunately be disqualified, and we don't want to do that. So if you're entering something a little bit out of the ordinary or new to you, ask us first, or look at the guidelines, look at the rules again, take a look and see if it fits those rules. And if in doubt, please call us and ask us, because oftentimes we're working on this at the last minute, and you don't want me to call you at 2 o'clock in the morning, which is probably when I'll be working on it. Ellen will be fast asleep.
I'll call you at 6 in the morning. But
Right.
not big.
So,
And all these, yeah, all the monitor calibration stuff that's coming up, Lydia, is yours as well.
okay, thank you. All right, so when we sit down to do all of this lovely print competition, and look at your images, we want to make sure that they are presented the best way they can be presented. So we do take our time to calibrate the monitors. We do follow PPA's specification as best as we can to make sure that your images are viewed to us as accurately as possible. And as far as if you send them forward, they were going to be pretty close. We don't have the same equipment as they do, and I think the next slide, yes, the next slide shows PPA uses the NEC 30. We use the BenQ's monitors. They have been fabulous. We've researched them before we purchased them. We've gotten great feedback, and so far, even, you know, everything that we've heard from our judges and what we see has been amazing. And as far as calibration devices, we use the Spider 5 Pro. SpectraView is what PPA uses, but again, we've been able to get these images to look awesome for you guys.
And just, I can't remember if this comes up, Lydia, on another slide, but just so you know, because everything now is done online and all the judges are home, they're not using our monitors, they're using their monitors, and they have very specific ways that they're supposed to calibrate their monitors, and we do something with them before where they look at images on printcompetition.com and they're all looking at the same images, and we're asking them, okay, are you seeing, you know, the full spectrum of white to black and all this stuff. So there's a lot of processes in place to ensure that everything is consistent. And if you're working on a calibrated monitor, which obviously you should be, that what you're presenting and what they're seeing should be the exact same thing.
Right. And Julie does a real nice job in ensuring that these are questions that she asks before she secures our judges for us, to make sure that they understand what all that stuff means, they have those capabilities, and that they are able to calibrate to PPA's specifications. So yes, it does come up a little bit later, but thank you for bringing it up now. And we also ask them to make sure that their lighting is dimmed, and they're also, honestly, they're judges, they're IPC judges, and they understand this process. So we have been really fortunate with our online competitions to have some amazing judges. If you haven't competed before, you should. And if you have, you guys know what I'm talking about. So again, while we're not going to get into too much details about the actual process that we go through, but this is kind of what we do. We warm up our monitors, we put them in a dark area, we calibrate, and we make sure they look amazing. And we do test them also. We look at, you know, guide images that we compare images to, and look and make sure that these guide images look good. The blacks are black, the whites are black, white, nothing is blown out. A contrast looks good, and then we go from there. These are the specifications that PPA requires. Please don't ask me what any one thing means. I am not an expert with all of this. However, if you are and you want to learn more about it, there's a lot of information that you can go to and learn about. A couple of slides ago, I put the link. So if you want to learn more about it, this is where you go. Print competition rules and update. I think that's you, Ellen, right?
Most of it is. I'll let you know when.
Okay.
So almost everything has stayed the same, just a couple of changes. So we've always had 3 quarterly print competitions and 1 annual. The thing that's changed is that our annual was in January or early February, and it has moved to April beginning this year. So the quarterly competitions, the digital ones, the smaller ones will be January, July, and October. We have the dates coming up shortly. What I mentioned earlier about being able to enter up to 15 images per competition, and the way that we are giving some of the Photographer of the Year and Category Awards, that's been just kind of finessed slightly, which Lydia will talk about in a little while.
Okay.
So this is just kind of important to remember. And so if you take a class or if you take a workshop, you are not allowed to enter that image into a Maryland print competition and into an MDPPA print competition unless you're actually teaching the class. Even if you've kind of wandered off a little bit or not doing something under the instruction of the instructor or the guidance of the instructor, you are still not allowed to use that image. You can't enter an image that is similar to one that you've already entered. So if you had, I don't know, a little boy sitting on a swing and his hands are underneath his butt, and you're now entering that image and he's holding onto the sides of the swing, we would consider that to be substantially similar. So you are not allowed to re-enter that into an MDPPA competition, assuming that that first one was merited. So they're supposed to be new works. And so you can, however, enter the same subject now, as long as it's significantly different. And so if you're photographing a dog, like me, or a cat,
Or a bird.
or a squirrel, right?
Okay, yes.
As long as, you know, it can be from the same session, but the images need to be significantly different. So they should basically tell a different story. And if you're in doubt, just ask, we'll let you know.
And I want to say something, guys. We do look at this. So if we feel that an image is very close to something we've seen before, we have gone back and we have researched it. So and if we don't catch it, somebody always does, and we get to hear about it later. So if you're really in doubt and your images kind of look the same, or you did something from the same session, make sure it's very, very different, because there's nothing worse than to have to call someone and say, I'm sorry, we're going to have to take away this award from you because this image was either entered before or too close to something. Oftentimes, you know, people will say, you know, I know it's different, but I want to enter it for score only because I like this rendition of it better. And I think I want to go with this for IPC or SEPA or something like that. And that's fine, as long as if we know your intention ahead of time. So if you're in doubt, please call us, please let us know, and we can guide you.
Yeah, which actually kind of segues to another thing, that if you enter an image in January and it scored 82 and you got feedback on it and you think it's a really strong image, you can re-enter that. Well, April's a bad example because you can enter images that merit in the quarterlies into the annual, as long as they haven't merited at IPC or SEPA. But let's just maybe say July and October. If you're working on an image, you can re-enter it into the state for score only, just because you're trying to refine it and make it a stronger image.
Even
so,
if it has merited. So if your image
right.
merited at one of the quarterlies and you still want to finesse it and refine it, then you can enter it for score only.
Right.
Okay. Good.
Yep. I think this one is mine too, and then I think you're next.
Okay.
So I'm just going to kind of go over these really briefly. I think the big thing kind of with the portrait is they're really supposed to be the main subject, and you are supposed to really kind of have control over them as well as your lighting. This came up in PPA a couple of years ago with some animal photography. Somebody's image did really well. It scored 100, but it was entered into the portrait category, and it was not an animal. It didn't fit the definition. It was not controlled by the owner or photographer. It was photographed at a zoo, and the lighting wasn't controlled. So this is kind of, portrait is very specific to, the definition here is really specific. And again, if you're not sure, because you know, sometimes if a person is in it, you think, okay, well, is that a portrait or is it illustrative? And sometimes it's subjective, but most of the time it's not. If the main subject is the person, it's a portrait. If it's kind of a smaller part of the image, it often can fit well into illustrative. And illustrative is a much broader category. Nature, wildlife, again, you can kind of see everything here. With the commercial category, that the intent of this category is it's really used to sell a product or service. So Chris Paulus does a lot in the commercial category. He's done, you know, like surgical tools and glass art. Real estate can fit here. So, but
Products.
yeah, yeah. So
Okay. The next two categories are artist and creative open. For the artist category, it is really important to know that all manipulation, all artwork, everything that you do must be done by the entrant. If you choose to use other people's work in that image, just make sure you're able to get written permission if it's requested. And we don't require you to give us that information, but if it is requested, if an image comes back and gets questioned and we question you, therefore we would, you know, we want to make sure that you have it. But the important part in the artist category, that anything that you do needs to be done by you. And then if you decide to get it printed, it can be printed under your direct supervision if you have control over that, or if you print it yourself, great. The creative open is a little bit different in the sense that your backgrounds, your additional elements that you can use into that particular image could be somebody else's image. It is allowed to be somebody else's image. So if you purchase digital backgrounds, or if you want to add a little squirrel or a rat or a dog to your image and it's not your particular image, it is allowed. Again, if you use other images to enhance yours, please make sure that you're able and you have permissions to use these images. If ever questioned and needed, that you could provide us with that information. Guide images are requested for both those categories. So when you set up your print, you need to put your guide images. However, in the creative open, the guide images need to only be of the added elements, whereas in the artist category, all of the images used require you to have their guide images, whereas the creative open, only the added elements need to be added with your guide images.
next one is you too, Lydia.
Next one is me too. Okay, wedding and social events. With the wedding category and social events, they must be done, created on the event, the day of the event. And I'm actually excited about that because as a wedding photographer, it's tough to shoot on the actual day, and it's tough to create great images. So when somebody has all the time in the world to create an image and they compete and they get great scores, and you're like, well, if I had an extra 5 minutes, I could have finessed all of that. So I kind of like that PPA went to day of event requirement, and I'm happy that we followed as well. Made me a little happy. Album and book, or event or non-event album category, we do actually have event and non-event albums. They are allowed. You can enter them as a single maker or a multi-maker. If you do enter them as a multi-maker, meaning if you shoot with other photographers, either for a wedding or if you're out on assignment with other photographers, the second or the additional photographers, if they're MDPPA photographers with good standing, they are invited to enter that book with you. The cover of the book needs to be at 400 square inches. This is if you're providing us with an actual physical book. If not, it needs to still be at 4,000 at the longest edge for digital. An album is entered as a single entry. There is no minimum or maximum pages. And the one thing that we do ask you for albums and any image that you enter is that you do not identify yourself on anything that you present. No name, no studio name. If it's on there, please cover it. Take a little piece of paper, tape it on there. Do not identify yourself at all on anything you enter. That goes in the titling of the image when you enter it with printcompetition.com, but we don't want you to identify yourself, because then if a judge sees that, you're kind of going to hurt yourself later on if you take that image further. All right, questions so far about anything that we've talked about? Danny, this is you. Or Ellen.
I think that a lot of the stuff you guys are covering, but so somebody asked if there was a clear explanation between portrait and illustrative, which I believe Ellen had already shared. And then Bruce is asking, can you share the calibration settings? And Ellen says that's coming up. So I
Well,
don't
they
see
already
any
did.
questions.
Yeah, it did. I saw it come up from Bruce, so I just typed it in because I knew it was like 2 slides coming up. So
Okay.
Okay.
So
All
can
right.
you order critiques after judging for districts and IPC?
I think so, but I will not swear to that.
Joe Campanelli, would you know that? I think that Joe had answered yes.
Yeah, I'm here. Yes, you can.
Okay.
Okay.
Terrific.
And not only that, at the last judges refresher class that we did, they're trying to put in place like what you did at for IPC, that you can order critiques before district and before IPC, that so you can run them through there, before we get to the actual competition. But I don't think that's actually in place yet.
Okay, so we are in place to do that. So if you know that you definitely want to critique when you enter your images at printcompetition.com for Maryland, you are able to order your critique at that time and pay for it. And you have 3 days after to order critiques if you did not prior. We ask you to please don't create more work for us if necessary, please. If you really want to critique, do it before if you know for sure you want it. If not, just wait till 3 days after and order it afterwards. We don't want to do a whole lot of refunds and all of that good stuff because it just creates more work for Steve or whoever our treasurer is at the time.
Mhm.
So please just, and also that goes for entries, if you know you're going to enter, please enter and stick with it because it does create a little bit of a nightmare afterwards to fix things. As far as the categories, did we answer that question? I think, did you say yes, Ellen? We answered it?
It was
whoever-
answered. Ellen,
It
would
was
you mind
answered.
looking in the chat? Because there's a couple of questions here
Yeah,
that
I saw that. So somebody asked if you go to a workshop and only go there so you can get to the location, like a different country, you still can't. I feel ya. I did a workshop and I kind of went off on my own, but the rules state that if you go on a workshop and it's an instructor led, if it's a workshop that is led by instructors, so if it's just a group of people that you're going away with, that's fine. But if it's a workshop, you cannot enter those images in NDPPA.
Yep. And honestly, don't risk it. Somebody will always call us and say, this was done at a workshop.
So Samantha Marshall was asking a question, and maybe you guys answer this or not, but she is asking, can you enter something in the portrait category, but then artist category in another quarter if it doesn't merit or vice versa?
If it doesn't merit, you can re-enter it. I'm just not sure. Yes, you can. It doesn't. Yes, if it fits within the category, then you can enter it, because sometimes like I'm thinking of a portrait, it might be painted, right? And you might have kind of painted a lot of stuff out and a lot of stuff in, right? Or you might have done a lot of kind of just fun creative work to it. So if it doesn't merit, you can re-enter it as long as it makes sense for that category. It doesn't matter what category it goes in.
So it has to be a significant change than just I tweaked, contrast and I'm going to put it in the artist category.
But she said if it doesn't merit. So if it
No,
doesn't
I understand that. But if it doesn't merit in one area, you can't just take the image as is and put it in artist, specifically in the artist category, because the artist category, you're supposed to have enhanced it somehow artistically, other than just tweak a contrast or something.
assuming it
Right.
meets the definition of the category.
Correct.
Eddie has a question. Sorry.
Go for it.
Samantha,
He says that an image that merits at quarterly can be submitted for annual competition. He just wants clarification that he is correct.
Yes.
as
Yes.
as long as it hasn't been entered into CEPA or IPC and merited there, yes.
Yes.
If you enter an image, yes, the timelines get a little confusing, but right, I'm just.
So with our new timeline, let me see if I can help you out. With our new timeline, you're going to enter your images in January, July, and October, with the idea that you're working on them in that time period to enter in the following annual competition as your sort of, if you wish, your final image. So you work on them, you know, you enter it in January, you tweak it if you need to, then you put it again in July, you tweak it and you put it again in October if you need to. If it merits along the way and you're happy with it, then at that point you're just going to wait and have it re-entered again at annual
But
in April.
But if in the meantime, if in the meantime it goes into CPR, IPC, and merits, you can't enter it into the annual.
Exactly. Unless if we make an exception, like let's say if SEPA and ours are a week apart, which I think is going to be the case or was the case last year, they were like a week apart. So we made an exception. And if we do make an exception, we will absolutely let you know. And so we'll communicate that. But as a general rule, no. If you put your image at SEPA or IPC, then it cannot come back to MDPPA. Think about it as an upwards movement. And once you move up, you cannot bring it back down.
Only if it merits. And Ted, I saw the judging dates are coming up again in a second.
Yes.
So
Okay, so there's no more questions in the chat room. I could see, Lydia, do you guys want to move forward? You want to take a 5-minute break, or what do you guys
What
want
do
to do?
you tell me? If you want us to take a break, we could take a break.
Let's take 5.
all right.
So we'll be back at 8 o'clock, guys. Go
All right.
get a drink and come right back.
Okay. Just trying to entertain while we're waiting.
All right.
Hey,
So,
Danny,
we're back.
Danny,
We're
this
back.
is Kenny Epps.
Hey, Kenny.
I tried to put a note in the chat room, but I don't think you saw it. It may have went someplace else. But I did have some confusion on the difference between the artist category and the illustrator as far as what you need to put on the board. If she could clarify that.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so do you want to do it, Lydia, or you want me
Go
to?
for it.
So
Go for
so Penny, illustrative is can you pull it? Can you go back a slide, Lydia? So illustrative is kind of more topical, if that makes sense. So it could be like a landscape scene. It could be wildlife. It's kind of a really broad category. Whereas the artist category is, I would say, kind of maybe more technique based. So it could be like a composite. And I think we have examples of these later, but it could be like, you know, you take multiple images and you put them together to create an image, or you've done a lot of painting, so a lot of technique to the work. I think Paul Biederman did one because it was absolutely stellar, and it probably could have, he entered it in the artist, but it could have really gone in either category. It was, I'm pretty sure it was a heron at, I don't know, sunrise, but the shadows and where the bird was standing, and the end result, it was a GEA finalist at PPA. Because the before and after was stellar. So it can really be like, the artist can almost be any subject, but it's kind of how you like what you do to kind of get there.
Okay.
If that makes sense. And illustrative is just subject matter.
Ellen, this is Christina.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I meant the difference between the artist and the creative open.
Oh, okay.
So with the creative open, so let's say, for example, you have a beautiful portrait of a bird and you want to put that bird in a specific tree, and you don't have that tree. So you purchased the image of a tree. Okay, so you did not create the tree behind it. You've purchased that image, or you've borrowed it from another photographer, or somehow you've acquired that tree that you want to put that specific bird on. So in the creative open category, you are allowed to enter that image with the idea of you providing us the guide image for the tree. So you put on the guide image down below, you present the tree that you purchased or that you acquired, or somehow you got that tree. You know, if you borrowed it, purchased it, whatever. Or if you have a beautiful young lady and you want to put her in a castle and you purchase that image of the castle behind her. Again, you can use that in the creative open. You can enter it in the creative open. You just need to make sure on your guide image you include the castle.
Generally, I think what
both the artist and the creative open, you need to put that in the guide section.
You do need to provide guide images, and when we go a little bit later, we're going to show you examples and you'll see
Okay.
what that means. But in the artist category, you need to make sure that all of your artwork, all your manipulations, everything that you do is yours. To, like, if you do a composite, that needs to be all of your images
It
that you
doesn't it doesn't actually need to be all images that you created, though. It can be images that you purchased, but you're putting them all together. I think the big difference between artist and creative open is really technical difficulty. So it feel like with the creative open, really kind of most of it should be yours, and then kind of maybe a small percentage of it. So if you had a bird, for example, and you thought it would be stronger with a worm in its mouth, and you were able to get a worm as a stock image, then like it's so, because the artist is really a lot of the judging for artists is done on technical difficulty, and creative open is really, it's kind of more just helping to enhance that, but not necessarily technically that difficult, but then you're still able to use elements that you didn't necessarily take. My understanding of the artist category is that you don't have to take any of the image, anything in there. It can honestly, it could be drawn, but that all of the processing, manipulation, artwork, and rendering has to be done by you.
Okay.
So.
Did we answer that, Christina?
I guess.
Okay, you can ask if you're still not sure. Christina, did we answer that? I know we were
Yeah,
trying to chime in.
that was a pretty good explanation. You hit it right on the nail on the head, Ellen. It is when they're talking about the artist category, they are really looking for the technical proficiency. If you just went and clicked on a simple filter or something like that, it kind of turned it watercolor.
Mhm.
They're like, hey, that was really easy for you to do. They're not, they want to see that you actually can show your Photoshop skills in the artist category. Creative open, they still want to see that, but it's not as critical. Like, yes, you're still blending something in with another picture, but like they were both saying, you could take something complete, it could be a drawn picture. It doesn't have to be, it really could be any element at all, putting it in there. Okay. Like that for the artist. But they really, and you will hear the judges say that, like, oh, this is a really nice image, but there really wasn't, the technical proficiency isn't really there. So they really look at that very strongly.
Okay. All right. So if I had an image and I dropped the sky in and put some birds in there, would that be creative open?
Yes. If you pretty much just use the elements as you found them, then yes.
But what if they're part of plugins?
Say that again.
What if they are plugins?
Plugins as in from where?
Like you have programs that have birds and you have skies and things of that nature. And you're blending it into your image to make the image stronger.
I would probably say still creative open, unless if you do serious artwork to it, like change it into a painting, for example. I would pretty much say still creative open. Now you can enter it into illustrative. If you put a sky and a bird, you can enter it into the illustrative category.
I think the real thing with the creative open is that you have an image and it would be stronger if you did something to it. It's not enough to kind of get it to the artist, but that something that you're doing to it requires an element that you didn't photograph. So you're just adding one thing. One of my friends does a lot, and she's super talented, a lot of creative open work. I can kind of hook you up via email or in person, and she can probably walk you through like all the specifics, because she's been like a GIA finalist there, and she does a lot of creative open, and she's also a master artist, so she's incredibly talented. So she might be able to kind of give you very specific examples if that would help.
That's fine. And you're going over some examples tonight anyway.
Well, can I give you one example of a creative open image? So for example, I do a lot of sports for kids, for high school kids, and I purchase templates from Ben Shirk. Okay, the templates are gorgeous, they're beautiful, and I photograph my subjects to blend with that image. So that's an example of where I am creating a creative open image where I'm purchasing a template from Ben Shirk. I'm taking the sports images here on a green screen or a gray screen or whatever, and I'm extracting that image that I took and I'm putting it into Ben's template. So the amount of work that's going into that image to create it is pretty much photograph, extract, put into that image, do some minor tweaking, and that is a creative open image. Whereas if I took that image further and painted it and created a much more intensive rendition of it, then that might qualify into the artist category. So maybe I added additional balls or, you know, light strobes or different elements that would just require it to have more work done to it, then that might be able to go in the artist category. But if it's a simple extraction and put it on a different background, then it's a creative open image. Does that give you a visual?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
That's very helpful. Appreciate
Okay.
it. Thank you.
All right.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Where does restoration work fit in?
Frustration.
Restoration.
Oh, restoration. A lot of
illustrative. It's usually illustrative, right?
it's illustrative or artist. We've seen Chris enter some restoration work in the artist category.
Artist, yes, restoration falls under the artist category.
Right.
Only? Oh, no matter.
Only.
Oh, is it only Christina?
I'm most of the restorations that I've seen, I mean, I guess technically if you didn't really do a whole lot to it, then yeah, you could put it in illustrative.
No, you're right, Christina. I don't know what I was thinking. I got commercial kind of, I got confused in my head. It's artist.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay.
Right. Do we want to go on to the MDPPA image critiques? Do we have any other questions? Well, we'll have time at the end.
I
Okay.
don't see any questions.
All right.
All right. So image critiques.
So we talked about this kind of a little bit. So which hopefully we will sometime go back to in-person judging at the quarterly competitions only, not at the annual. A maker can request a critique of his or her image. You can't request critiques of other people's images. You can assign somebody to request a critique for you if you're not there. And kind of the way it works is if you're there, you would hear the score announced, 79, 82, whatever, and then you would just say critique. And one of the judges would give you a critique, and either Lidia or I or whoever is helping us with the judging would choose a judge to give that critique. If you're not able to attend, and that's a moot point right now, you can request critiques, which we talked about earlier, through printcompetition.com. Kind of the nice thing about that is that they tend to be more in-depth anyway. A lot of times, like if you order a critique through CEPA or IPC, they can be 2 minutes, they can be 6 minutes. Usually they're somewhere between 3 and 4, but it generally tends to be much more in depth. The nice thing about that too is it's recorded, so you can kind of listen to it over and over, and the judges will like zoom in on something. So those are really very thorough critiques. They are an additional fee in addition to the entry fee. And as Lidia said earlier, if you're not sure if you're going to request one, it would be easier just from a management perspective if you waited till after the print competition. That way we don't have to handle refunds. It's just a little bit more of a process. And the judges who judge that particular competition will be the ones giving the critiques, and you'll get them. It's an MP4 file in Dropbox about 2 to 3 weeks after the competition is over.
Yep.
This is you, Lidia.
MDPPA judging online, because of the wonderful situation that we're in. We have done an awesome job with the online judging, and I love the attendance. I love the numbers that we're getting from you. It's worked for us well, and we've been also able to get you judges that we wouldn't be able to afford otherwise, that are really high-end, strong names. So we love that. And Julie has been our judge procurer, and she will continue to be, and we're excited because she's got a good pool of judges that she's been able to pull from. So again, we talked about how they view all of the images on calibrated monitors. We've covered that a little bit, but we want to make sure that the standards that we follow are also being followed remotely. You as the viewer can watch it via Facebook Live. Bruce has been awesome in facilitating that for us and making sure that you can watch it live and follow through with with the competition, and you can also watch it on the Game Day app. We know that the sound bit is missing. You can see the score, but that's where both kind of play together nicely. And later on, once we get the sound bites from Jeff, they get added to the printcompetition.com portion. So we're gonna continue to do all of that, and there's various ways to watch it. And we've gotten some really good feedback from you guys about the online competition. So I think we've continued to do it well. The ladies, Christina and Julie and Ellen and I have worked really hard with the board to make sure that that does not get interrupted. So we're proud of it. Okay, judging. The dates, you guys have asked us for them. Here they are. Ellen, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, it's always January, April, July, October, and it's almost always, with the exception of the annual, which kind of flexes some, especially April with, Easter and spring break and blah, blah, blah. It's almost always the fourth Wednesday of those January, July, October. So you can, it does flex sometimes. I know, like this October, I think we did it on a Tuesday because of the Fall Fest. We had a speaker, but that's pretty much it. And then the next slide, we talk about this is what's coming up, and you can find this is already up on PPA's website, which is where we pulled it. And I was looking at this yesterday and realized that if you enter something in our annual, and you still will be able to get it into, you'd have to pay the late fee for districts, but our annual competition is the 14th, and so you could still enter it into districts through the 29th.
Right. And again, this might be a situation where an exception will be made so that you guys, if you choose to enter it early, this is a situation where an exception will be made. But please wait to hear from us officially before you enter it, at least at MDPPA. Obviously, districts does not have the same requirements as we do. So, exceptions like that will be made. So just please wait till we give you the final okay.
It won't actually be an issue because the judging for this is after hours. So they
Right.
wouldn't have inherited it anyway. And then all of districts is happening at the same time. So SEPA, NEPA, I don't know if it's really called NEPA. All districts are happening at the same time. And then IPC was pushed back. Well, districts was pushed back and IPC was pushed back. So there are the deadlines.
Yep. All right, we good?
We are good.
MDPPA awards.
All you, Lydia.
All right, so we know that's not the only reason we enter competitions, right, guys? Okay, so many of us love those little trophies and the little dingle dangles and all the stuff that we get. So we want to talk a little bit about these awards, but the primary image should not be about the award. I mean, the primary purpose to enter a competition should not be the awards. It should be more about personal growth, finessing your style, whatever it is that you want to do to grow as a photographer. And then as a result, these awards will come. So and one of the things that we always hear after a annual print competition is, I got this award. What was it for? How did I get it? I don't know that I got this. How did I get it? So we're going to try to shed a little bit of light. There's a whole lot more information on this on our website, on our in our print competition rules. So please go there and read it at your leisure. But there's two sets of awards that we give. One based on the quarterly competitions, which is the ones that happen during the year, and one based strictly on the annual competition that happens in April, in this case for this year.
Can I just add one thing? Because
yes.
I was a little confused with this. What Lydia just said, the ones that are based on the quarterly competitions are the previous year. So
yes,
this year, the January, the July, and the October 2021, those quarterly awards will be awarded in April 2022.
Correct. So you compete this year to win those awards next year.
For the annual award.
For the annual. Well,
the quarter.
for the quarterlies. So everything that we're going to hand out in April of 2021 is based on what you did during 2020. So, and why the categories, we give you the category award. So if you're a portrait photographer, if you're an illustrative photographer, an artist, etc., those are the category awards that we're tallying up. So every time you earn a merit, we're keeping score. Every time you, well, for the annual, it's really the images that merit that will count for you, score wise. I'm sorry, for the quarterly. So every time you merit, we are keeping track of those scores. And so the two categories of awards that you will earn based on your quarterlies are the photographer of the year category. So you could earn portrait photographer of the year, illustrative photographer of the year, artist, the wedding, what else am I missing? Commercial. So those you will earn, and they're going to be, this year we're going to be doing it a little bit differently. Because we've increased the number of entries, we've had to look at the way we award things. And so we've changed the awarding system to be based on the top 6 meriting entries per category. So we're going to take the average of your top 6 entries, and that's going to determine who will win Photographer of the Year for that specific category. And so each awardee or each winner in that category will earn a trophy. Your trophies will say your name, that you have won Photographer of the Year, Commercial Photographer of the Year, Wedding Photographer of the Year for the previous year. And you will also be able to earn 3 MDPPA merits. Now, hang on a second. Before you ask me about the merits, we're going to cover them a little bit later. So hang on that one. So aside from your category award, you're going to earn, one person will earn the Maryland Photographer of the Year based on their overall average. Now that's the one that really trips up people on how they can earn it. So this is like our Grand Poobah Award, if you wish, based on your competition year the previous year. So in order for you to be a contender for that award, you need to enter in 3 different categories and have a minimum of 2 merited images per category. So for example, you need to enter in illustrative, portrait, or commercial. That could be, any 3 categories. You need to enter in 3 categories and win 2 merited images per category. So if this is something that you want to strive for, I would say start thinking ahead and say, okay, this is an award that I really want to go for, and enter in multiple categories and enter plenty so that you can at least get 2 merited images. You will get one of our largest trophies as of what we've been ordering in the past. It is a big one, as Christina always calls it, and you get 4 MDPPA merits for that award.
And I don't think we have this in the slideshow anywhere, Lydia. So I know this is talking about quarterly competitions that are awarded at the annual convention. I'm not going to get into detail on this, but at each quarterly competition, there are also best in show. And
it's coming. It's coming.
Is there? I don't remember.
It's coming a little later. Yeah, I think so.
Sorry, my bad.
That's okay. So this is really, we're talking, this is the final awards, if you wish. I thought it was coming. Yes, it's coming somewhere. I put it in there. I don't know where it is. But anyway, so these are the 2 categories of awards that are given based on your performance during the quarterlies the prior year.
Right.
And now at the annual level, so this is when we come together in April and you enter all of your lovely images that you've worked on throughout the year. You come in and you enter them at the annual convention or at the annual competition. Then there are category specific awards. Like, for example, you can earn the Monty Zucker Wedding Image of the Year Award, the Tom Krieger Album of the Year. That's for the album category. Album non-event. So the Tom Krieger is an event album, and then we have a special award for non-event. The Meyer Rifkin Portrait for the portrait category, Paul Snyder Commercial, Artist Image of the Year. illustrative image of the year, Carl Hardig the most creative image of the year, and that is given to truly the most creative image in the category. Maryland image of the year is only given at the annual competition, and we do have a special category for Maryland. Creative Open Image of the Year, and the Maryland Loan Collection Awards. The Maryland Loan Collection Awards are given to the top 50% of the merited images in all categories. Now, how do you earn these? Enter, score well. It has to be based on merited images. And so we put them out in secret judging behind the scenes, and the judges will look at all of these images and they get to pick what they want to award. This is not based on your scores. This is really based on what appeals to the judges and what they feel is the strongest image in that category. Okay, next is cross categories. So once we pick the main categories, and this is really fascinating to watch. I've had the pleasure of watching it for many years, and it is just so fascinating and it's so exciting. The whole awarding process after you guys leave and we send you out to go eat dinner, and we sit for another hour, hour and a half and continue to talk about your images. So the cross categories is once we award the categories themselves, we ask you sometimes when you enter your images, we ask you to check off, is this child, pet, nature, black and white? So then we take all of your images and we put them into these 4 categories, and then we bring them back. All the children gets put together and they look at them and they pick the best portrait of a child. We give it in the memory of Kelly Pierce. We talked about Ed and Barbara earlier. Kelly was their daughter. Best portrait of a pet, we bring all the pets and we give it in memory of Ralph White. Best nature in memory of Carolyn Yen. And that's always a clock. So Christina always gets these beautiful clocks and people love them. Best black and white image is for Prosperos Zavalos. And we talk some more about who these people are at the annual banquet. So do come to the banquet, and that's when all this stuff gets handed out. And that's how you learn more about who these people are. Then we have our special awards. The sweepstake award is basically, again, we have the grand poobah of the quarterly competition. The sweepstakes award is the grand poobah of the annual competition. So that is awarded to the person with the most, oh gosh, Christina, is it top 10?
I thought it was the highest average.
Highest average. Sorry, you're right.
It's the highest four score.
Sorry, thank you. Highest 4 scoring images. So we will look at whoever has the highest 4 scoring images. We average it out, and that's who gets the sweepstake award. Then there are 2 other special awards that are given by ASP and CPP, and those are awards that are given to us from PPA. Steve presents the ASP award. Steve Clark presents the ASP award for our ASP member who competed and has an image there. And then our CPP is presented by Chris Paulus to our CPP person.
Both of those are for the highest image. Those are for the highest score.
Thank you. I was trying to fumble through that one. Again, more information on how to earn these awards with really a lot more specific information is in our rule book or the rule pamphlet that we will share with you online on our Maryland PPA website. But I just wanted to touch briefly, if you want to start thinking about, oh, I want to start winning awards, well, these are the awards that you possibly can earn, whether you compete at the annual competition or quarterly competitions. Now, go ahead.
Joe, did that answer your question? I saw it in the chat about the difference between the photographer of the year and the sweepstakes award.
Yeah, I got it.
All right, I just want to make sure. Okay.
Okay, and it's really exciting. And one thing that Ellen said, it's a visual affirmation to your clients. And I have plenty downstairs in my studio. And when people come in, they look and it's kind of like it tells your story. It really builds you up. And a lot of people that know me personally don't know what I do professionally and the competition. They come in, it's like, oh my gosh, we had no clue. And it kind of puts validity behind you as an artist. So it's neat. It's neat to earn. It is a very special feeling. I can't describe it to you. I mean, for those of you who have earned these awards, you know that feeling. You are on cloud nine that night, and you're going to go home and you're going to brag about it, and you're going to post it all over Facebook, and we love it. We love sitting there and chatting back with you and congratulating you. And so we encourage everyone to enter, not just for awards, for personal enrichment and improvement, but the awards are nice to have. So, all right, besides our MDPPA awards, Ellen's going to talk about the next level of awards, which is the PPA. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm still me. I'm sorry. MDPPA degrees. Okay, so remember when over here we talked about, 4 MDPPA merits. So what does that mean? Okay, so we're going to talk about merits and degrees right now, or we're going to talk about degrees and then we'll talk about merits, or we'll talk about them together. So every time you compete and you earn merits, it goes towards your degrees. So every merit that you earn, you account for at the end of the year. Christina has been sending love notes to all of us to say, don't forget to fill your reports, and they were due before the end of the year. So I hope that you got them in, because she's busy tabulating all of that good stuff now so that she can give us the information so that we can figure out who we need to give little bars or medallions or whatever. So for each 25 service merits that you earn, we give you a gold bar and you get a degree, which is our associate fellow degree. The associate fellow is based on service merits. How do you earn those? You earn them by helping out with programming, helping out during programming. If you're on a special committee, if you assist any member or not member, anything with membership, anything with programming, anything with snacks. If you're the snack person like I was for many years, you can earn it by mentoring people, or, we have a list of specifications that Christina sends out every year. Please take a look at that and see how it is service wise. If you're a board member, if you have a position helping at a committee, you can earn service merits.
Lydia, if it depending on how many classes they attend,
True.
or if they attend a full day class, they get a merit. Anything
Correct.
like that, they'll get merits. So it's
Correct.
not just service, but it is also for education.
Thank you. And do we have that information on our website, Christina? Like, can they go back and see what they can earn?
I do have something out there. I'm
Okay.
not sure if it has everything, but they could always email me if they have any questions.
Okay, so this is really Christina's department. She's the one that keeps track of all this stuff, and she does a fantastic job with it. So, and a lot of times you guys will see us wearing our little dingle dangles and with, the ribbons, the different colored ribbons. That's really how you showcase your degrees and awards that you've earned. So the next one is the Fellow of Photography degree, which is the gold ribbon with the medallion, and that is 25 merits. 15 are based on prints, and 10 are based on service. Or you could be all 25 prints only. It's just if you wanted to add, or if you wanted to combine the two, you can. But that's how you earn your fellow. The combined degree you earn once you accomplish both. So once you have 25 for the associate fellow and 25 for the fellow, then you will earn automatically your combined degree, and you get a little gold bar, and the ribbon itself is black and gold. And you get a gold bar that says combined degree. So you will have 3 little gold bars. And then after you earn degrees, each merit that you earn afterwards, whether it's service or print, then will add towards that specific degree, and you start earning points. Every time you reach 25 merits, or 25 either service or print merits, then Christina will issue you a gold bar. So you will start adding your gold bars to your necklace or your ribbon. And that's how those are earned. So the best thing I can tell you is just keep track of what you do. If you compete, keep track of your, okay, so here's where this gets we get a lot of questions. I merited 30 prints last year, but I'm only allowed to get 5. Well, the print merits are really counted from the annual competition, or if you get a best in show. Am I right, Christina? Best in show gives you a merit?
Yes, for the quarterlies, If you get a best in show, you get a merit. That's the only time that that will occur. For the annual, you will get a merit for every meriting image, and for any of the awards associated with that, you will get merits.
Okay, so your merits during the quarterlies, if you earn 80s during the quarterlies, those will not count towards your degrees.
Correct.
Only a best in show or merits during the annual competition. And Christina goes through and fixes them. If you've made a mistake, she will catch it and will let you know that no, you didn't. But again, it's nice to be able to know ahead of time so that you're not disappointed with that communication that I'm sorry, you didn't meet the criteria. Ellen, did you have something?
I was just gonna say, just because I'm noticing it's 8:30 and then we still have a lot to get.
Okay, we'll talk faster. All right, so the next level is PPA, and Ellen's gonna talk about those.
Yeah, and basically you can get the Master of Photography, Master Artist, Master of Wedding Photography are all, you have to have a minimum of 13 print merits, and then 12 other merits, and those other merits can be continuing education or service or print. The way merits work at IPC is that a merit counts for 1 point, 1 merit, and a lone image counts for 2. And the photographic craftsman is given for speaking merits, and I think it's still 13 and 12. So, and they're completely separate, just like the competitions are separate.
Okay, and more information can be found at PPA's website about that. All right, I added this one in. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. So, do you want to talk about those?
I mean, if people want to hear about it, I'm not, I know the GIAs, I'm not super familiar with the other stuff. Let's just say that PPA has a lot of other awards, and if anybody has any questions, let us know.
And honestly, there is a whole lot more information if you just go there. If you want to learn about these awards and who won them and what have you, there's a lot of information there. Okay. Questions about any of that?
I don't know if it's a question about that, but Kenny asked, what's the difference between a non-event category and an event category? What is the non-event category?
All right, so an event album is going to be a wedding album, bar mitzvah, anything that's done during an event. So a day-long event is an event album. A non-event album could be, I went to Yellowstone and I want to put together a collection of images from my trip to Yellowstone. And so that's non-event. That took, multiple days, could be a specific genre. It could be all about the pets that I photograph, or all about my kids, or, whatever other non-event album, non-event product.
That's
So,
awesome.
so it could be
And,
like a collection of flowers, a collection of whatever you want to create an
Gotcha.
album of.
And
So
Ted Mueller said he wants a dingle dangle.
Yeah,
Okay.
you definitely want a dingle dangle. Everybody wants a dingle dangle.
Everybody wants a dingle dangle. Yeah. Anything else?
Well, Lydia, I have a
Yes.
question. So if, let's say I did photojournalism and I was, throughout the year, I was photographing a lot of the marches, is that considered a non-event?
That's a non-event because it was done over multiple days. Yes.
Okay.
Even though it is an event, but it's done through multiple days. So that would be a non-event album.
Okay.
Now, if it was all from the same day, like one march, one day, then that is an event album because it was done on the same day continuously.
No, I've photographed several of the marches throughout the year.
Well, I can't wait to see it. That's exciting.
Well, that's why I was asking about the, what is it considered to be a non-event?
Right. So it's a non-event if it was multiples.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to move on. Helpful hints. Okay. So this is where we're going to talk to you a little bit about the 12 elements of design and how to incorporate them into your images. And we're going to specifically talk about each one of them. And we're going to start with matting your images. Well, this is really presentation of the image. And, oftentimes with new entrants, especially, we see them just come in and putting an image from edge to edge, and it doesn't have any kind of framing or matting. One of the things that we do feel that does enhance the image is incorporating a mat. Carl Kaler, again, I'm going to go refer to it because that little 5-minute clip that I shared with you right here is awesome. He goes into step by step on Facebook. He shows you exactly what to do, how to size it, how to put a mat, how to put a stroke around it. One of the things that we do recommend is pick colors that work harmoniously with your image. Pick something right there from your image. Select whether it's, the darkest, or the strokes could be from the lightest or color that you like. In this case, it's a double stroke. It works well with this image. The next example I want to show you is again, very nice, very dark. The border comes from within. The blue stroke comes from the little baby, the little bear ears on the hat. It works well. Keep your thicknesses fairly thin. Don't make them super thick unless if that's a design element that you wish to portray. You can make the mat itself a part of your design element. It does not have to be squared into the positioning of the image on the mat. Could be really anything you want. It could be a design element. It could be a little itty bitty image on the bottom, the top, on the side of the mat. The placement could be on the third if you wish. So nothing in the rules says the mat has to be exactly the same dimension or slightly larger, equal on all sides of your image. It could be whatever you like. You can create beveled edges. You can set your images. In this case, there's a torn edge image, and then set in with a beveled edge, and it's manipulation. Some places you can purchase actions to create this, or if you know how to do it, you could create it yourself. This is a little bit more advanced than just a simple stroke, but it works very well with this image. Drop shadows help. It just helps bring out it's just a part of finishing your image, really, and it brings out the image and the detail that you've put into it. A double matte, double beveled, and look at the shadows around and the texture that's been brought into the mat over here. I think it plays very well with the image itself. Again, images are pulled from the image of the color of the mat is pulled from the image directly, and you can really be creative with that. Hang on.
And I think
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think the matting is really important part of the presentation, and it can be really frustrating sometimes, but it's something that you need to consider. And you will hear comments where, let's just say that this image had been matted in, bright white. It probably wouldn't have merited, and the comments would have been, well, it's a great image, except the matte detracts from it. And so it really is, you have to kind of look at them as basically one piece, and the presentation, which is the matte, it should enhance that. So the other part that we hear a lot of questions about, or is the importance of choosing a title. Do you want to go to the next slide, Lydia?
Yes.
So generally shorter titles are better. So I have heard long ones that work, but kind of all these rules are just general suggestions, right? Just try to stick with shorter titles. Avoid words that, so what happens, let me back up for a second, is, so I feel like everybody's seen print competition, but if you haven't seen it in person, what happens is the title is read first and then the image flips around. So that's really an important part of setting the tone of the story that you're trying to tell. And so if you have a title that the juror who's reading it stumbles over because they can't pronounce a word, just because how au revoir is pronounced, the juror reading it might not, and then you're kind of putting yourself at a slight disadvantage just because it kind of interrupts the flow, right? So the title is really kind of helping to set the tone for your image, helping to tell the story, just kind of getting you started. They read the title and then it flips around. The other thing is to avoid overused titles. I don't know how many times I've heard, did you say Bacon or Pretty in Pink or 50 Shades of Grey? They were probably great the first couple times, but they're just overused right now. So we have some title examples. Lydia, do you want to just kind of click through them? So I think this is really clever, right? Eat more chicken. You hear that, it flips around. It could have just been cows in a field, but that probably wouldn't have worked as well. So likely that's going to get a chuckle. It's going to predispose the, jurors, kind of get them at least started on the right note. And you can just click through these quickly, Lydia, if you want. Again, it's probably not what you expect. I feel like sometimes when you put titles and they don't kind of expect the image that's coming up, then that can sometimes be a really good thing. The next one, this is a commercial entry, and it's descriptive, in my opinion, as it should be. I mean, that's what it is. So you don't have to say, through the prism or something like that. I feel like in a commercial piece, something that describes what it is probably stronger. Again, this one is going to make somebody laugh, right? Bad hair day, you're certainly not. I mean, I wasn't expecting that. So, and you'll hear the jurors chuckle, which is good. And it's also kind of telling the story. So of what you expect to see, right? That's what's going on in the image. And the next one, this is one of mine. The other thing I wanted to give an example of is, so one way that you can come up with titles, or that I do a lot, is I'll just share my images with my friends or my family and say, hey, when you look at this image, what do you see? One of my friends came up with this one for me. I looked at it along, this was, client's work, and I just don't see it. And so, but it was perfect. And it's definitely, I would guess that it's not what the judges expected to see when this flipped around. And I told my client that this is, because this was a loan image. I told her what it was titled. And this is actually a male cat, and his name is Normal. And she said, that's what they just call him now, is Princess. So, but I would never come up with that on my own. So sometimes that can be a good way. I'll look through old loan collection books just to kind of, sometimes it'll just spur an idea, because you'll look at something and you're like, oh, it's kind of similar. So those are some ways that you can come up with titles. People will also suggest looking at song lists, song titles, lyrics, that kind of stuff.
Sometimes I work backwards, where I get a title in my head and I'll go create an image to fit that title. So you could also do that, whether it's recommended or not. Sometimes that works too.
I've heard Carl Keller recommend that before. Sometimes
Right.
You're like, oh my God, this is great. And what can I do to make that work?
Right. All right. Now we're going to actually dive in a little bit into the actual 12 elements. That was kind of pre-teaser for you. We're going to dive into the 12 elements, and we're going to look at so what we did for this one is we pulled from our merited images from last year, and we kind of wanted to showcase them as examples of what worked. And Ellen, you're going to start us off with impact.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add that each slide on the bottom has a link. So if you click on that, it's going to take you to the impact 12 elements of a merit image.
Carl Kahler's.
Yep, and they're all Carl's. So impact is really kind of the first impression, right? At first sight, it should be a strong image and kind of easy to understand. Kind of what's happening, what is the maker trying to convey, and I listened to Carl, so I took notes because he's way better at this than I am. So keep in mind that sometimes the most simple images can be the strongest, and so sometimes it's a simple image that's really strong. Sometimes it's, if you've seen Ben Shirk's work, right, super complex, killer strong. Joe Campanelli and some of his images are in here. They're generally tend to be really clean. It's kind of subject focused. It's simple, but it's killer strong, right? Lots and lots of impact. And so, and then once you kind of have that image flip around, it needs to hold together after that initially. So you can have that wow factor, but if it starts to fall apart because, oh my God, there's clone stamping or blown out highlights or no detail in the shadows, then some of the impact is going to go away. So basically everything, all of the other 11 elements work together to create impact.
Right. These elements really don't stand on their own. So like if you just go, I'm like, oh, I'm going to work on impact only, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. You really need to incorporate all of these elements. And these images that we're going to show you, even though we've chose that particular image for that particular slide title, there's a lot working together for that image to work to be a meriting image. So don't think that we chose these just because we think, oh, this is only an impact image only. It encompasses everything. All right, next is Ellen again.
So, so storytelling, right? So, the maker's ability to evoke imagination. So what are you trying to get across? It starts with the title from the very first, that's the first thing the judges hear before they even see the image. And then you kind of, move to the image. So what does it take you on a journey? Is it telling a story, or is it just kind of blah? My friend Lisa, and I actually used a couple of her images in there. Lisa Asp, she's a killer photographer. And she says, sometimes with impact, she's like, if I can't even remember what I entered in competition, how do I expect the judges to remember it? And I always keep that in mind, because I think that's a really good point. The other thing that's really important is anything that doesn't help you tell the story should be removed, right? If it's not an essential element. I remember when Sandra taught her class, she talked about an image that she had created, and it was just too busy. There were things in there that just she thought were good elements, but it actually detracted from the story. So you kind of have to justify everything that you're using in the image, and take out anything that does not really add to the story. And the next, can you pull up the next one? So can you just go right to the video? So this is my friend Lisa Asp's album.
Whoop. Sorry, hold on. Sorry. Okay.
She entered this in IPC, I think probably 3 years ago. It scored 100 at IPC, and I listened to the critique on it because she entered it at SEPA as well, or not SEPA, but where she's in Minnesota, so wherever. And I listened, so she got a critique on it, and I listened to that critique, and the judge was crying when she gave their critique. And I expect that some people probably will too. This kind of has impact and story, kind of through the roof. So.
And this is an album, so just watch, please. Whoa, hold on. Sorry. There we go.
So I would say that has impact. And she put I told her she wanted to put the copyright on it, but I know we talk about when she entered that in competition, it didn't have her identifying information.
Okay. Next image is technical excellence, and I think that is one thing that the judges really expect from us as photographers, is to make sure that we look at anything that we present to them to have excellence. Ellen talked about, cloning marks or anything like that. We really need to stop and pay attention and look at that. One thing that I admire about Joe's work is it is clean, like Ellen said, beautiful, and it is always excellent. And it just has a stamp that says Joe Campanelli on it. Another thing I want to talk about this image specifically is the mat, and I meant to put that up in the presentation. The presentation here of the image extends beyond, so he kind of drew from the image itself to create the matting and the presentation, and it really works. So keep your subject, show the judges what your subject is, and keep it clean, keep the colors well, quality, print quality needs to be good, sharpness, look at exposure, look at any manipulation that you do, make sure it's well done and there's no any artifacts left to when you present it. Next, creativity. Is that you
Yeah.
or me?
It's me. I think we're alternating from here on out.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
So personally, I think this is the hardest one. The way Carl talks about it is, what he says is that many photographers continue to do well in competition because they keep showing the judges things they haven't seen before. That's really hard to do. I would argue that this is a great example of that. And this was an artist image, so you can see the guide print on the side. But it's really, it's your expression, it's your imagination. What Lydia was saying earlier about thinking of a title first and coming up with an image that matches it, that can be really creative. But it's just trying to show the judges maybe something that they haven't seen before. And the next example.
But can I just say one thing about this image? This was actually from 2 years ago. It somehow left an impact on Ellen that she asked me specifically to go back and get this for creativity. So there's an image that not just is awesome, but it created an impact for her to remember from 2 years ago. So, all right, moving on.
And this is another one of Lisa's. This one just, I like to be entertained. This was called The Fantastical Beast. And I remember when it first came up, people were like, wow, that's a really weird looking dog. And they didn't realize that it was, what does she have? 6 different dogs kind of combined. So again, just really, really, really creative. People haven't seen kind of either one of those before.
And Kenny, to answer your question, the bottom images are what is called the guide images that were used to create that particular image, the final image. So when we talk about guide images, this is exactly what we're talking about. And in our rules, it specifically tells you how to display them and where to display them.
Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Style, I think that's me. So style is what defines you as an artist, and it could be in maybe how you retouch, it could be maybe how you photograph, how you light, how you pose a subject. It is what, if I look at an image and say, oh my gosh, this is a Ben Shirk image, it's because he has a specific style and a specific technique that he uses to photograph and finish. Or it could be just the subject matter. Ellen photographs pets, so it's easy for me to narrow down images and say, okay, if it's a pet, is this an Ellen image or is this somebody else's image? It's just like anybody who photographs birds or any specific genre, that could be a part of their style. Again, is it the finishing of that, the technique that you use to photo finish your images, whether it's a simple illustrative image or in this case an artist image where you've created a whole completely new environment. But the way that these 2 images were finished would tell me that there was a specific style that was applied to finish that image to create the final presentation. Next, Ellen, that's you.
Yeah, so it's composition is really kind of how you place or arrange your visual elements within the end result, within your work of art. It's the way you balance everything. We hear a lot about rule of thirds, and this is a great example of rule of thirds, I think. But that is just one part of composition. Placement is really just kind of one part of composition. And we always hear nothing should be dead centered. Well, that's not true. Sometimes something can be dead centered, and that's what makes it the strongest because of where it's placed. So it's really dependent upon the image to kind of, and where you place elements in it. And so I think on the next slide we have, here's just kind of various compositions, right? And then, what you'll hear a lot is people kind of, they move through the image, but they don't kind of have anywhere to rest, right? And so that's generally not considered a good thing. So even though this image, there's not necessarily a defined subject like there was with the bird, this is still obviously like a really strong composition. It's like, you know what your subject is. Next slide, Lydia, please. And again, just kind of another, kind of centered, it's kind of not centered, but you know, all that the negative space kind of to the right and to the top really kind of force you down into that beautiful interaction between this little girl and what I assume is her dad. And these are just kind of some ways that you can look at where to place your subject. There's obviously kind of lots of quote unquote ideal placements. And in Photoshop, when you use your crop tool, you can actually kind of run through these. You can actually do it in Lightroom as well. You can actually run through the different proportions and kind of see where your subject is and see what works for you.
Presentation. We talked a lot about presentation earlier, and we're just going to cover it a little bit more for a couple of slides. You know, here's again another presentation that helps, kind of brings it all together, anchors this image, draws your attention to the image itself. Colors are picked right from the image itself, and you want it to enhance and not distract. Had the maker gone with like a blue border, that would have just taken away. So you do want your presentation to enhance your overall image. And here again, you're talking about a low tone image. The colors are coming, you know, you don't have a stark black, it's coming somewhere from his pants, I'm assuming, and the secondary border is coming from the background, a little bit of a green. It works really well, and it helps you focus right back onto the subject, which is the gentleman, and the beautiful lighting, and it tells a story about whatever it is that he's doing with that pipe. So the presentation does help anchor your image and bring attention to where you want it to. Ellen?
So color balance, you can kind of really go two ways, right? You can go with color harmony, or you can go with more contrast. And I think kind of in general, color harmony is probably a little more soothing, and color contrast is kind of a little more
contentious.
Yeah, maybe more powerful, but I don't necessarily mean powerful as stronger. I just mean just, you know, it just kind of, yeah, contentious is probably a good word, but they can both work, and it just depends upon, you know, what you're trying to do, but it definitely has to work. Here the, you know, the contrast between the blue and the yellow is stellar. Would this work if kind of everything were, if the background and everything were blue? It might. It works really well. It works really well this way as also, and obviously the bird also has some of those tones on his chest. So and then again, you know, the color also ties into the matte. Oh, and the other thing I think with color is just kind of remembering kind of what you want to highlight. So light colors come forward and dark colors recede. So thinking about color from that perspective as well. I mean, this is just beautiful. Like the tones on this, they're all those kind of shades of like pink and kind of like little and pinky browns. And so this is great. I think if you had kind of contrasting colors in this, and you have this like soft little sweet little girl, the story wouldn't work, the image wouldn't work. So you have to think about kind of how everything works together with what you're trying to do.
And impact, how much impact does this have when it comes around? You've got a sweet little girl, got the storyline going. So not just a single style, there's many different styles working here. You good?
I'm good.
All right. Is that you or me?
You.
Center of interest. Okay. So again, what is it that you want the viewers to look at? Is it, you know, the staircase? Is it the spiral? What is it that you want your viewer to look at? Figure out what your center of interest is and place it in one of those PowerPoints that we talked about in the composition a couple of slides before. And that is very strong. There's a reason why these elements, you know, our eye goes there, and the maker wants us to go there and see where the action is. The center of interest here is, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there is a little bird in there. While this is a symmetrical image and you could look at it and say, wow, this really works. There's a beautiful little bird. I don't know what kind of bird that is, but he's in there, and the colors tie in well together. There's a beautiful reflection even of the little bird itself. So even in a beautiful image, the white spot right there in the right lower right corner is where the center of interest is, and where the viewer wants you to go look at and see what kind of activity is happening there. And I like the repetition of the reflections.
I think it's a great white egret, Lydia.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't going to say something because I don't know my birds very well.
I only know it because Joe just typed it in. I'm not,
Oh, okay, thank you. Cheater.
hey man, at least I admitted it, right?
Okay, that's good. All right, lighting, that's you.
Yeah, and so lighting is, I think, probably one of the most complex subjects to discuss. And first of all, the subject has to be well lit. Generally, flat lighting isn't good, but the lighting also has to match the subject, right? So if you use this lighting on that little girl that we had a couple of slides ago, it wouldn't work. And so again, it all ties back to the story and the mood you're trying to convey. And so the lighting needs to really match the mood, and kind of some of this also goes back to your style. If you're doing a happy image, then you probably don't want split light, right? If you have a little kid, you probably don't want split light. But the lighting on this, if you just have this kind of, I don't know, Rembrandt lighting or butterfly lighting, well, first of all, he's in profile, so that wouldn't really work. But anyway, let's just say he's facing on. Like, it changes the whole mood of the story. So you really have to look at it not only from is your lighting well done technically, but is it also creating the mood, setting the scene, telling the story that you want it to tell. And then also kind of keeping in mind, like, kind of the effects of lighting, right? Like, is it slimming? Is it, if somebody is really thin, maybe you want to use a broad light style. So it does apply it to print competition because you're kind of thinking about it from that perspective too. And then again, what we talked about kind of before with, where your lighting is falling. Like, obviously it's a portrait. You want his face to be well lit, because if this were on the lighting were on his stomach, it wouldn't be well done, but it would also be drawing attention to his stomach and not to his face. So, and then you have, you pull up the next one for me, Lydia, please. And this is another example. This one was, the judges love this one. They talked a lot about the lighting and how beautiful it was, kind of coming from the left. And this is completely, obviously, you do have some control over lighting outdoors, and the fact that you choose when to shoot, right? But I don't know if this was early or late or just overcast, right? But if this was done at noon, this would be terrible, right? Or noon, on a non-overcast day, it would be terrible. But you can see kind of very soft lighting throughout this, right? You can see the shadows in the footprints. You can kind of see soft shadows kind of underneath the hills, and it works to kind of create this just kind of beautiful, serene image. And
subject matter, that's me. Subject matter is important, and it helps tell a story. I mean, here's an image that's busy, there's a lot going on, but I can look at that right away and say, okay, it's about this two couple who are doing whatever it is that they're doing, whether they're dancing or kissing or, and even in a busy situation, the placement of the couple, it's really, when you enter the image, that's the first thing you see. They're bigger than everybody else. You kind of go right in there and then kind of explore the image later. So the placement, the subject matter, the action all needs to tell your story. And we do a good job telling stories as photographers, so our subject matters need to matter. Ellen, I think that's you.
Actually, it's you, Lydia.
It is me. Technique. So again, technique is it a painting? Is it artificial light? Is it natural light? Did I shoot it that way? What did I do to create this final image? And these are things that you continue to work on and develop. And it kind of works with your style. It works with how you light, how you pose. So it's really everything that you encompass to create an image. And then that's how you kind of develop what looks like your image, your style, your technique. And it takes time. Here's another different technique, a very simple, clean, black and white, kind of looks like it might be hand drawn. I don't know if it started out as an image or if it was drawn completely, but it is truly the vision that you have and how you got there to create it, and that becomes the technique that you've used to get to that point.
And you'll hear judges, you'll hear judges talking about the technique that was done, because sometimes somebody would say, well, I don't really like X, or they don't, and someone will say, well, I think that's the artist's choice, and I personally think that technique works because it does this.
Right.
So,
And it's personal and it's subjective. There is no really right or wrong rule. Some people will do something that works well for them, and others will try to mimic it, but it just doesn't work. And it really has your stamp on it, and it becomes a part of you and who you are and your work, your body of work. Restoration, that takes a lot of technique to be able to pre-visualize something and figure ways and steps to recreate something and fix it and correct it and bring it back to life and what it could have been. And this, I think, in restoration is even harder, especially when you have an image that's badly damaged, because you're trying to recreate somebody else's work. And so the skill and the techniques that go into creating something like that is amazing. And we have a great restoration guy, and I believe he's teaching in a couple of days. So if you guys have not signed up for Chris Paulus's class, please do. I'm excited. I can't wait. He's amazing. All right, questions. Oh, we're done.
I have one more.
Should I go back?
I just two quick comments to add on titles. Sorry, the events of today have gotten me like a little distracted with what's going on in the country. I just wanted to add two quick things on titles, because I think titles really are important. Generally, I feel like a title won't hurt you unless you call attention to the wrong part of an image. And I remember an image entered at MDPPA years ago where it was like two little boys kind of in front of a pond, and there was a gazebo in the back of the pond, and the gazebo was reflected, but the boys weren't. But the image title was like something related to reflections, and the judges commented that it just didn't make sense. I mean, they had other comments on the image anyway, but I do remember saying, but they're calling it this, and that's not really the subject of the image. And then the other thing is that you'll hear judges say, well, we repeat the title again, and then they'll use that to kind of say, like someone will say, well, she just looks really depressed and I don't feel like, and another judge will say, but the title of the image is this. And so that's what they're trying to do. So I know that was random, and I apologize. I had that in my notes, and
it's all right. And sometimes the title will, like, once they go back and talk some more about the title, it could help either raise or lower the score. So yeah, you're planting a seed before you get there. And so you want that seed to make sure it's a good, well-planted seed.
Yes. All right, Danny, we see you back.
Well, I'm just waiting for you guys. I don't see any.
We are ready to take some questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Lydia and Ellen? That sounds very.
That means we covered it all. We were that good.
Wow, you guys were awesome.
Either that or they're just tired of listening.
I know.
I've got that. So.
No, I really appreciate the insight, and I know that everybody else did too. There was a lot of comments in the chat room, so I know people were engaged and involved. So I know that you'll probably have more questions coming your way after this presentation is done.
And here's how you can ask us if you forgot or you don't want to speak up now. Go ahead, Kenny. I'm sorry.
I think the presentation is wonderful. Really, really great.
Thank you, Eddie. Did you recognize any images in there?
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't see any of my images in there. I'm just a little pissed off about that. But
wait a minute.
There were your images in there.
There was one at least.
Oh, I don't know. We'll see. I'll go back and watch it.
Danny, you know what that means? We're teaching another class next year.
There you go.
Yeah, that means you gotta, crack the whip a little bit. Get some images.
Right. So
for January print competition, the printcompetition.com, the website is open. For submitting images. You'll get the first email is going out tomorrow. I haven't heard back from Julie yet about procuring the judges. I know it's kind of a tough time of year with the holidays and everything, so we don't know who the judges are yet, but there will be 3 judges, and kind of everything else is the same. Everything is ready to go. So feel free to start entering, and it will start at 1 o'clock on the that date.
So it's the 27th. So the deadline is the 20th.
Hang on, Danny. I don't have my notes in front of me. So the early deadline is, give me a second.
It was about 200 slides ago.
So the early deadline is the 17th, and the late deadline is the 20th. That's correct.
Okay, terrific. All right, so prepare your images for your first print competition. and see what they do and how the judges are. And you got to start somewhere, right, Joe Campanelli? I think Joe's probably gone.
No, I'm still here.
He's here.
Oh, there
But
he is.
seriously, guys, go back and look at those video links. Like, we have found them to be amazing. And we kind of started, like, we wanted to create that. I'm like, why recreate the wheel? These people have done it and they've done it wonderfully. Carl
Right.
is amazing. And if you have not seen them, I don't know how new they are, but they're fairly new. Just go back and watch them at your leisure. And I've kind of watched them over and over and over the last 3 days, just preparing this, because every time I listened, I heard something new. So please do go and watch them. You will, even if you're a veteran at this, you will pick up something from it.
Correct.
Yeah, you said they were on PPA.
Yes, they're on
Right.
PPA, and there's a link on every slide that we've presented. We put a link. So if you click on that, we will share this with you as soon as we're done. I will share it with you and put it on our website. But do
Kenny, if
go
you
there.